Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Cesar Quintero on the line. Cesar, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Michael. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. You just launched a new book and you've done all kinds of other fun stuff. So why don't you share a little bit about you with the audience, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, originally from Venezuela in South America. And I graduated as a process engineer, went to corporate a couple of years, and at 24, decided to move to Miami, get married, and start a business all at the same time. So, that's what you do at 24. There's no risk at that age, I guess. And so I started a business in the food delivery area. So this is 2004, which is way before Facebook and Uber Eats and all of that. So I literally went door to door and convinced people it was convenient to have your meal delivered every day, kind of thing. And we were first in market. The business grew with the market, so it was good. While the business kept growing, I saw that my time kept dwindling, and I was answering calls, delivering meals, going to the kitchen when people didn't show up, and I was starting to get really resentful of my business because I wasn't getting what I wanted from it, and I wasn't. Now, mind you, I had 37 employees at the time, but I was such a control freak. And I know you love talking about leadership and culture, and for me, it's all about really how hard I was making my team members to really step up and take ownership of their roles. So with that, came 2012, I got hit with a baseless class action lawsuit. An attorney and a woman, that was their fifth company targeted, and I wanted to prove that I did nothing wrong, and I fought it to the nail and went through it and spent most of my finances in that. But it was Black Friday of 2012, and I realized that I had $0 in my business account, $0 in my personal account. I was like fighting this to the end, and I said, something needs to change. Like, I'm not in business for 8 years for nothing, and everything's been out the door. So that's when I started my true leadership journey in 2012. Is saying, okay, I need to become a better leader. I need to empower my team better. So I went through a purpose discovery journey with a Simon Sinek model, and then I implemented the Entrepreneurial Operating System in my company, which empowered my team members to really take ownership and accountability. And I started the Great Game of Business profit sharing model, where everybody had a stake in the game, and everybody profited from the business doing well. So that's kind of when everything kind of shifted and turned. And within a year, we were able to pay the attorneys, settle the lawsuit, and the company grew. And then little by little, I realized, wow, the whole issue in the company was me all the time. And it was my way of being not a good leader, and just not empowering people to really do what they needed to do. And then since then, I started two different businesses. And I sold that in 2016, which I sold to two of my employees. So two of my managers bought the company from me using an SBA buyout loan. And then I started going more towards what I love to do, which is, empowering entrepreneurs and leaders to go through that journey I went through. And that's what this book is all about as well, is the stages that we go through. And sometimes it takes us too long to get there. It took me 8 years to understand that I need to become a better leader, but there's different 5 stages, and we always go through that in the flywheel of entrepreneurship.
All that you've mentioned, from being named in a lawsuit, which is an absolutely horrible experience. You're just, minding your own business. It was the beginning of the holiday season, and you get what? That's not the present you want to get exactly. at Thanksgiving. Like, I'm getting what? And then all the things you'd mentioned, and navigating through all of that, and then the self-discovery of becoming a better leader. And that's sometimes very difficult for leaders to really do, because we often emulate the leaders that we've had. So we think, okay, that's how you lead. And we may have our favorite leaders, if we take the time and study other leaders outside of the leadership that we worked with directly, we can pick up some cues and some traits and things like that. But many leaders, unfortunately, don't do that work. So they're limited to the experiences that they've had. And they think, okay, this is how you lead. And I love the EOS, the operating system component of it, because I'm a systems person. I like things in order. I have a poster that says I have CDO. It's OCD, but the letters are in alphabetical order like they should be. So it's true. It's one of those things where I'm a lot better than I used to be. But I like systems in place and routines and rhythms, because then I don't have to use the brain juice to think about what do I need to do next. I already have it lined up. I just basically have to show up. It's basically delegating. And that was something that I was absolutely horrible at as a leader early on in my career. And this is how it's going to be. And now it's, when I was, still working for an organization, anything that came across my desk, I would say, okay, who besides me could work on this? And if I could think of somebody, guess what? They were getting it, but with an asterisk. It was a case of I needed to make sure that I took good notes on what I've delegated to whom, so I didn't overwhelm my key people. And that's easy to do, because as leaders we think, okay, John can do it or Sally could do it. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, wow, why is John and Sally quitting? Or why are they missing work all the time? And then you look at their workload and like, I screwed up there. So
best team players always gets the most jobs.
Exactly. And it's the truth. Yeah, it's like, having a superstar on a team. If you don't have other really good supporting players, then that superstar ends up carrying the load a little bit more, and then they potentially get injured. You could look at LeBron James as a real example for that. Yes, he's older in his playing career. He's definitely not old by human standards, but in professional sports, he's been in the league for a while. So it's going to take a toll, especially if he has to carry the weight of that team. But, we'll see how that all plays out. But so let's dive into the book. I always ask authors this: what in the world made you want to give up so much of your life and time to write a book? Because it is it's time consuming to write a book.
What I realized is, so I started working with more and more leaders and entrepreneurs and going through the processes that I went through. And what I realized is that most of us were going through the same journey. I realized that my journey was not unique at all. I thought it was. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book about my story because it's so unique and people go through this and it's so hard. And it's like, I start talking to other leaders, other people, other, business leaders and entrepreneurs. And it's like, no, we all kind of go through the same process. We kind of like start by opportunity or by chance. And then somehow we make it. And then we have a team and then we're managing this team. And then, and then we don't really know how to follow up and how to decentralize ourselves. And so what I started seeing was more of a pattern within the cycle, and I defined 5 different stages. So the book is called The Profit Recipe, and the 5 stages of the entrepreneurial flywheel to live life by design. So and in reality, it's all around how do we go from startup mode, which is the opportunity, the jump, the going into the food business, not knowing anything about food, right? And nowadays I tell people don't go into food, no way. But there's no way, right? You just get into it. You see an opportunity, you dive deep, you dive into it. You got an opportunity for a job, or you're going up in leadership and they gave you the opportunity, you say yes. Like, you don't really think about those things because it's an opportunity. It's something that is getting you to the next level. But then we need to go to leader by design, which is the second stage, which is now I need to understand what I'm truly good at and what I'm not. And I need to be vulnerable enough to accept that I'm not good at everything. I think that was one of the hardest things for me because my ego is pretty high, I guess. And I was like, I can manage this whole company and I started from scratch and I'm growing and and I have all this team. I can do it all. But it's like, no, I'm not the best at each of these. And a lot of us, I tell entrepreneurs, just because you started a business doesn't mean you have a job in it. Because a lot of times we're the worst person for that job. But in our minds, we say, we need to do it. And this is where the leadership by design really needs to go through and understand, and be vulnerable enough to say, what am I good at? What are my superpowers? Where should I spend my time most? And then Once you go to the third stage is building that team by design, right? And understanding both external teams, mentors, coaches, people around you, peers that can help you go through that, but then also internal teams in a structure of accountability, of understanding who is accountable for what and who's responsible for what, having your second in command, a person who really follows through and goes through those things. And that leads to business by design, which is stage number 4. So startup, leader, team, and now business by design, which is the operating system, is systematizing everything. It's allowing the business to work without you. Like when I was in my business, I thought my business was me, but then I realized, no, my business should work without me. So implementing all these things was helping me, get decentralized. And then lastly, you go to life by design. And life by design is that place where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why is so much effort into this? It's like, for some reason, when we start getting more time, we start understanding what our true purpose is, what our ideal life is, what is it that we want to do in the world? What's our impact? And then usually as a leader entrepreneur, you go into the next opportunity or startup. So that's why it's a flywheel, because the first time it's always hard, right? The first time is always hard. And then the second time you start spinning and it gets easier and easier and easier. It took me 7 years to get to $1 million in my first business. It took me 1 year. Within the next 2, I was already over the million, right? So the first time you go around, it feels hard, but the more you go around the cycle, the easier it is. Kind of, you already know the concepts, you already know who you need, you know what you need, you know your superpowers and not. So it gets easier and easier and easier. So that's why I call it the entrepreneurial flywheel.
Well, it's a great design because, like you said, the first go around, for many cases, it may be the first time you've done some of the things, because being a leader of an organization or working in corporate and then being out on your own, running your own business is something completely different. And kind of going back real quick to the food delivery thing of 2004. Not only was that such a pioneering moment, smartphones really weren't in existence as of that. Yes, there was BlackBerry and Windows.
There was no Google Maps, man. We did routing in MapQuest, and we would have to print them out for our drivers to take in hand, because they were they were GPS style stuff. Yeah,
exactly. I remember MapQuest, and I'll share a really quick story. I think I've shared it one time before on my show, where I was working in Chicago for a university there, and my boss had a meeting in downtown Chicago, and I printed off the map on MapQuest and gave it to him. And he calls me about half an hour the morning that he was going to this thing, and he was running late. And I'm like, oh, something wrong? What's going on? He says, what's the address of where this meeting is? And I gave him the address, and he's like, okay. And then he calls back again. He said, can you pull up the map on the computer and see where it is? Yeah, it's like directions. Like, yep, this is it. He said, go. And he said, and go east on, I don't remember if it was Madison or what street it was. He said, go east, about 1.5 miles, from basically Lakeshore. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? He said, east of Lakeshore is Lake Michigan. It wants me to drive 1 mile into Lake Michigan. And I went, so? And then I was like, all right. So here, I said, I don't know this. The map keeps pulling us up. My suggestion is basically do a U-turn, go back the other way. I'm guessing you'll find it eventually. And that's what he ended up doing. But it was just a glitch on that map where it wanted to drive him in there. I mean, if I could have done that intentionally, I probably would have as a joke. But no, that was absolute legit. So I remember MapQuest quite well. And sometimes Google Maps will send you on a wild goose chase too. But for the most part, it's gotten a lot better over the years. But yeah, I mean, launching a business when there really wasn't anything like that. Now we think food delivery. We don't even think twice about it. It's like, many of us probably have a handful of apps on our phones. Like, okay, well, we'll use this one today because I got a coupon, or this restaurant's only with this one. Whatever the case may be. So on this flywheel, when you encounter entrepreneurs and you're working with different people and whatnot, do you find that some of them are trying to get to step 3 and they haven't even got to step 1 yet? Are they like, they think they're further ahead along in the game than they actually are?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, because one of the things I say in the book is that entrepreneurship and leadership is messy. Both are messy. And, this flywheel is the same thing. Like sometimes you're building things on stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 5 at the same time, but they're not really gelling yet. So what I discovered is that in this pattern, understand where you're stuck at first, and then go to the lowest level and fortify that and get unstuck from that first so you can move to the next one. Because a lot of times, especially, I was reading a ton of books, I was doing different things, but I wasn't really focused on going past that stage that I needed to go through. I was just trying to develop many things at the same time. So there was no real purpose or intentionality around, I need to grow first as a leader before I have a team. I need to have a great team before I have a great business. So like that type of model and those patterns helped me understand is, oh yeah, if I'm building a team, I'm building a business, I'm building myself, let me build myself first more and then move to the next one, right? So it helps you get like a pattern. That's kind of what the book is. There's a paragraph at the beginning of the book is, how to read this book. This is as messy as it gets, right? As entrepreneurship. It's not a book that you go cover to cover. It's a book of where are you stuck and where do you need to go to that place and start there, right? And then move to the next stage. So it's very much about that. And that was the intentionality bit about it. I want to make it as entrepreneurship, as messy as it can be, where it's not linear. It's just like, what do I need and where do I go? And then start there and then continue, right?
Well, it definitely shows, from your consulting part of you that you're great in meeting the client or meeting the person where they're at. A lot of times like, okay, let's pull out the playbook. Okay, page 3. And we're like, okay, now we're going to do page 4. And they were done with that 6 months ago. And meanwhile, they're sitting in their seat sleeping. And you're like, oh, why are we not getting anywhere? It's like, yeah, maybe we can go back and revisit that later on if we need to. But in all likelihood, it's like, where are you right now? Okay, we're going to start from there. Where are you stuck? Yep. Let's fix this. That way you can get some momentum. When you were talking about that initially, the first thought I had in my head was back in the day when we took exams in school and we'd open up and, okay, question 1, we look at it and we go,
exactly.
What is, I'd never seen this before. I have no idea what this is. So we freeze, and just like entrepreneurs would. So, my recommendation, the teachers usually say, okay, if you get frozen, go find a question that you know the answer to. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I know that. What color is blue? Blue. Done. Okay. And then you're like, all right, you get some momentum. Like, okay, I got this. Then you go back to that problem. And because of hindsight and understanding and relaxing and seeing things clearer, the answer comes to you more often than not a little bit easier because you're not looking at it.
Momentum. Yeah, there's momentum. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of your book? If you have
favorite part of my book, I think Life by Design is my favorite section because I guess that's where I'm at right now. It's about really understanding. Once I sold 2 businesses, I'm in my 3rd, starting my 4th, and having this amazing time in my life. But it's more around intentionality, congruence, understanding what I want in life, and I want to be that now, and I want to be aligned with what I want in life. So I think a lot of us go through, a lot of times I work with people and they're like, why did you start the business? Like, I don't know. Like, how is it aligned to your life and what you want to achieve? I don't know. Like that, my dad passed and I had to inherit the business or I jumped into this not knowing what I was getting myself into, and there's so many of us that go into opportunities just because there's an opportunity and we don't really think about it around, does this align with my superpowers? Does this align with my purpose? And I think that's my favorite part of the book is Life by Design, which is really understanding what are we truly great at and and you were saying your filter of making, my filter for making decisions is either a hell yes or a no, right? Because if not, it just prioritization just becomes an issue. And now if it aligns with what I love to do and what I'm good at, hell yes. And if it doesn't, no, like there's somebody else for that. So that's kind of where I love to start always is Life by Design,
That's beautiful. And it's a great way for entrepreneurs to reconnect with why they're doing what they're doing and learning from that, because Yes, launching a business is and creating jobs and impacting humanity with a product or service is amazing. But if you're not enjoying the journey with it, then it's, that's really, in my opinion, potentially wasting your time or, taking away from something that you would actually really enjoy doing. So it's always good for people to, design their life, with a plan. And if they can launch a business around that, amazing. That's great. So Cesar, love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work you're doing?
Sure. So we're at theprofitrecipe.com, and the book is available on Amazon and the website, wherever you go. It's Profit Recipe and the 5 stages of entrepreneurship flywheel to live life by design.
And I'll definitely have that information in the show notes. So Cesar, again, thank you for the book. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and continued success.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.